Good day, podcast community. Pete Kane here, Podcast Pete, and certified lifestyle coach. We have a special guest. She was on a couple years ago, and I wanted to bring her back because when you are out there in the world, you got to know how to connect with people. You got to know how to build community, build relationships. And Sara focuses on that area. So, Sara, tell our viewers who you are, what you do, and who you serve. And then we'll get into our podcast.
Well, I'm Sara Branch, and I am, I'd like to say, a corporate escapee, having left corporate 3 years ago. And I came into this realization that people really don't know how to network very well. So in the last 3 years, I've put together a consulting practice where I coach and train primarily salespeople and solopreneurs how to network, how to build community, how to develop know, like, and trust with the people they want to do business with.
That is so valuable. I heard, I just finished a book, The Alchemy. Let me see that. It was written by the president of Tesla. The Alchemy. No, let me see. I think algorithm. That's it. Algorithm.
Oh, yeah.
This is what he said, which is just what you talked about. They don't like to hire people that have experience in that industry, and they like to hire people that got to figure things out. They have to learn how to connect. They have to solve problems. And what I've seen over my 4 years is it is a completely different world in corporate because you got all the support around you. You don't have to go out there and put yourself out there. So what was your biggest challenge going from corporate to doing your own thing?
Well, actually, we went through a couple of iterations. Before I left corporate, I decided that I was going to stay in business. So my husband and I did research, brick and mortar, people who are retiring, franchises, all that kind of stuff. My husband owns a franchise, so we chose to buy a franchise for me that would be complementary with him. My husband owns an action coach, business coaching franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And so we bought a networking franchise. It's called Network in Action.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent the first year or so of having left corporate going around to low cost, no cost networking groups in my local area to recruit people to come to my networking group. First of all, that wasn't quite as easy as I thought it was going to be. Second of all, that's when I realized that people really don't know how to network.
Mm-hmm.
When we walk into a room and we don't have a plan, we don't have something specific that we're trying to accomplish, we default to socializing. And socializing is not networking.
Completely different.
And so that's what I discovered. Now, my background is in instructional design. The corporate job I left I was the director of training and development for a software company. So I thought, I'll just take advantage of my instructional design experience. And I wrote a course. So I now have a 10-module course that teaches everything about, first of all, what's your mindset about networking? What is it you think about it? Are you scared? Do you like it? Not all the way through identifying your ideal customer, know where your ideal customer hangs out. What are you going to say to them when you find them, and how to track all of the activities that you've done for networking. But the main thing is people don't realize that they're not networking when they show up at a networking event.
Yes. I couldn't agree with you more. I just by default, because I couldn't drive around and it was hard for me. I didn't do any evening driving. So I spent all my time online, and I discovered that, that was a plus, but I did miss the socialization. So when I go out, I like to socialize, but like to your point, I see that as being kind of like when you are going to just a general event, you hang out with the people that because you know these people. Hey, I know Sara. I'm going to hang out and I'm going to get caught up. What have you been doing? But that's the exact opposite, because if you're going to spend your time, you got to get a return on your time.
Yes.
So tell our viewers, what's the best networking tip that you could share when it comes to, like you just shared, connecting and building those relationships that we would want to know?
Well, the first thing is you have to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, how can you measure whether you're successful or not? And I look at socializing as a reward for having executed my plan.
Mm.
So when I walk into a networking event, especially where I don't know people, I always arrive early. I'll find somebody who's standing maybe near the registration table. I'll introduce myself and say, "Hi, I'm new. Can you introduce me to?" And that request for introduction is to my ideal client.
Mm.
So if I'm looking for a real estate agent, I'll walk up to that person and say, "Hi, I'm Sarah. This is my first time here. Can you introduce me to a real estate agent?" "Sure, let me take it." Go on the other side of the room, you meet a real estate agent. Then that just becomes almost like a contagion. Then you can meet another one. Once you've talked to the real estate agent, you can say, "Do you know a CPA? I'd love to meet a CPA." Then you meet the next person, the next person. And so once you have connected with those people, and I tell my clients, you must always book one-to-ones on the spot. Do not leave a networking event without having booked one-to-ones, minimum of 2. So if you've met 5 new people, booked 2 one-to-one appointments, you've met the goals of your plan. Now you can socialize. Or if you're an introvert, you've executed on your plan, you can go home.
Mm-hmm.
So the main thing is most people don't know who their ideal client is. They don't have a clear understanding. So if you walk into a networking event and you don't know who your ideal client is, you're going to default to socializing.
Ooh, I love that. You said intention. I love the idea. It's so focused that if we're not focused on what we're doing, it's just like shooting that shotgun out there. It hits everything. Where
Yeah.
you got to have that clarity of what's your purpose in showing up and what do you want? What kind of outcome do you want?
Mhm.
I run into this all the time, and I'm always curious. You have your introvert and you have your extrovert. So let's pretend I'm an introvert, and I am, and I'm an extrovert. How does an introvert do the same thing that you're talking about? Because I'm just different than an extrovert.
Yeah.
What would be that tip?
Well, I'm an over-the-top extrovert, so I have to rein myself in. But the same rule applies for an introvert as it does for an extrovert. You have to have a plan. You have to know what you're going to do. And sometimes introverts have to pump themselves up a little bit before they walk in. They'll say,
Mhm.
"Okay, I'm just going to ask questions. I'm just going to find people. I don't have to stay here the whole time. All I have to do is meet 5 people and book 2 one-to-ones," and keep telling themselves that it's just an event where I'm going to meet people. The extrovert on the other on the other hand, like me, have to rein themselves in and say, "Okay, I'm going to meet 5 people I don't know. I promise myself I'm going to meet 5 people I don't know," and go from there. But the introvert, as I said, may have to practice. I've got a couple of clients that have actually gone to networking events with them
Mhm.
and stood across the room, but was there for moral support if they felt like they were not accomplishing anything. And
Mm.
both times they didn't need me. It was just nice that they could see that I was there with them. But it's that plan that gives you the security of, okay, I'm going to meet people. It's okay. All I have to do is talk. And I give introverts a plan of questions to ask. So there's no now I shouldn't say mistakes, but they've got a specific plan to follow. They got specific questions to ask, so they feel comfortable that they can actually work the crowd in a networking event.
Yeah, that's so good to hear. I love when you say there's questions asked because I'll sometimes, and this was at church, and I'm talking to this younger person, and he's in IT. I know him real well, but he'll come up and he'll kind of like stare at and, and I'm like saying, like, ask a question. Because if you ask the question, it relieves everything. And then you can listen and just be able to have that meaningful conversation. So tell me, like, what if I'm like out of corporate America? I'm always used to everything being done for me. Now I'm off by myself. I've got to build up my relationships. So I'm scared to death, not necessarily of meeting people, but what kind of questions would I be asking to try to make those connections?
Yeah, that's always on everybody's mind. One of my favorite things about being in Atlanta, now I'm an Atlanta native, and that's unusual these days. But one of the good things about being in Atlanta, when you get to meet somebody, you can ask them, well, where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up? What's your story about how you got to Atlanta? And talk about that. Uh, Talk about their family. Do you have kids? Do you, and it follows a little acronym that I have that's called FORM, FORM. You may have heard of it. F stands for family, O stands for organization, R stands for recreation, and M stands for message, or their why. And so asking them about family can include, where did you come from? Where'd you grow up? Most people move into Atlanta. How'd you get here? Tell me your story. How'd you get to Atlanta? And then what company do you work for? Or how'd you happen to start your own business? And then R is my favorite, which is, what do you do for recreation? And I'm always researching great places to go. So I ask people, what's your favorite thing to do on the weekend or in the summer? And then the last one, the M, the message, I'll talk to them about what motivates you to do this business. So if they bought a franchise, what motivated them to buy a franchise, that type of thing. But I think in the Atlanta environment, one of the best leadoff questions is, how'd you get to Atlanta? Where are you from originally?
That's so good. I don't know who said it, whether it was Tony Robbins or one of those type people, but when you are asking the questions, you allow yourself not only to connect, but because people will walk away and go, man, that was an interesting conversation. And all Sara did was ask questions about the person, because people love to share.
Oh, yeah.
So you're really making those conversations go deeper. And if you have that plan, that is so good to hear, because I think that's where people get stuck, is how do I, network, and what's the best way for me to have those meaningful conversations? And I love Form. That is a great formula, because I'm a big on acronyms too. I think we always have to have it. I do so much self-talk. If you followed me around, you'd think I'm a little nutty, because I just like to practice and practice and practice and practice. What would you say? Because AI is taking over. And I remember 3-4 years ago when I was just starting out, my partner would say, Pete, what are you doing with AI? And I said, I don't have time for that. I said, I'm having fun doing podcasts, and he kept after me. And it wasn't until the light bulb went off that I realized what a great tool it was. So, and I always say HI, human intelligence, is always better.
Always.
AI. So how are you using, what could you share with our community about how is Sara using AI with networking?
Yeah. Well, in my course, when I start teaching people about figuring out who their ideal customer is and where they can find their ideal customer, we use AI. And since none of us are marketers, I'm not a professional marketer, my clients aren't professional marketers, we ask the favorite AI tool. Right now, I like Claude. Someday Claude will be leapfrogged by another tool. But anyway, so we ask the AI tool to actually write the prompt for us. I'll tell them, write a prompt to help me get an accurate description of my ideal customer. I own a pizza food truck. Then the AI tool will give you the items that should be included in an ideal customer description, which are demographics, geographics, psychographics, all those things that us non-marketing people think of. So then you tell the AI tool, hey, great, I love that prompt. Tell me who my ideal customer is. And you'll get a summary of who the person is, how much money they make, what are they concerned about when they go to food trucks, and fresh ingredients, speed of service, that kind of thing. And so then you know who your ideal customer is. You turn around, and of course you can tweak it, but to keep it simple, like a pizza food truck, then you can say, okay, you've got my ideal customer. Tell me where I can find my ideal customer in this geography or these zip codes. And it'll give you a list of where you can find them. In the case of my pizza food truck client, we had 5 outdoor festivals, and this was in 2004, 5 outdoor festivals that he could register for and take his food truck to. Then the next thing I use AI for is helping my clients craft what they're going to say. And I call it a value statement. And a value statement has 2 parts. 1, what's the value of your business? And 2, what's the benefit of doing business with you personally? Doing business with Pete, doing business with Sarah. And we use AI for that because in a value statement, I've got to know who my ideal customer is. I've got to know the core value of my business. And I've got to know what needs I'm trying to meet for my ideal customer. And we tell the AI tool to use all those things, and it'll come up with, and we tell it how long. 30 seconds is 67 words. A minute is 135 words. So we tell the AI tool, write a value statement for me in 67 words that has all these things in it. And for my pizza truck client, it came up with, how would you like to have a food truck at your festival that had people absolutely wowed every 90 seconds? Okay. What does that mean? Tell me more.
Yes.
And so, and of course, there's more information behind that, but the whole point is to grab somebody's attention so they'll pay attention to you and hopefully ask you questions about your business. It's not just stand up and say, hi, I'm Sara Branch Consulting, and blah, 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 because people aren't going to pay attention to that. So we use AI for ideal customer, find your ideal customer, and craft what you're going to say to them when you meet them.
That's so good. You said in there, like, you're building interest.
Yeah.
Like, and I was at my Rotary, and there was a guest, and so I just asked questions, and I'm telling you, until they started, it was about 6 minutes of just, I call it throwing up, because people's attention span is short. And if you can't build interest, like you said, they want to ask you more. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. Because if they're not interested, you're just wasting your time and their time. They're going to be rolling their eyes, not maybe publicly, but in their head, like, get me out of here.
For sure.
You think you're interested in your stuff, and you think everybody has the same passion. So you're just kind of throwing all this, the whole thing at them, but people can't handle that. So when you're kind of out in situations, how do you gauge interest? Like what comes up in the conversation that that somebody wants to know more from Sara?
Well, of course, it depends on the situation. If I'm in a networking event where I have to stand up and say something, I generally start with a question or some unusual statistic. For example, I may stand up and say, did you know that 80 to 90% of your new business comes from face-to-face networking? And I'll stop for a second. I'll look around the room and see who's paying attention to me. And if it looks like it's only a handful, I'll say it again. I'll say, yes, 80 to 90% of your new business comes from face-to-face networking. And by that time, I've gotten a good portion of the room's attention. Sometimes I'll stand up and say, how many of you have a written description of your ideal customer in your marketing plan on your computer? And it's usually only the marketing people.
Yeah.
And then I'll look at them and say, well, if you don't know who your ideal customer is and you're at a networking event, how are you going to find them?
Yeah.
And then I'll say, I'm Sara. I'm a professional networker. If I'm in a situation where it's a typical networking event where you don't stand up, where you're just milling about with people, people will come to me and say, my big name tag has my first name on it, so it can be read 15 feet away. People will come up to me and say, Sara, what do you do? And I'll look at them with kind of a funny look on my face, and I'll say, well, I'm a professional networker. Huh? So that immediately gets people asking me questions. What does a professional networker do? So I have an advantage in that there's not many people like me, and I can say that kind of stuff. But that I'll being a little provocative, being a little on the edge is how you get people's attention.
You know, I had a person, I don't know if there's a difference between guys and girls besides the obvious, is like when it comes to coaching, this person, you know, had done quite a bit. I mean, he's very, very good, but he made a comment like, are you trying to sell me coaching? And it's like, I said, I'm not trying to sell you. I'm just saying, I want to show you what's possible through blind spots. We all have them.
Oh yeah.
And then he asked the question, and I said, what if Michael Jordan, back when he was a great scorer when he first came out of the college, and he was making scoring titles, and before Phil Jackson came in, if he would have said, I don't need any coaching, I can score all the points I need, how many championships do you think he would have won? I probably can say zero. Because he embraced it. He said, yes, I can learn. And he bought into the system that Phil Jackson had, and then 5 national or NBA championships. You think, I mean, guys, we all have egos, but I think guys have more, like, I can do it all myself. I got AI. I got all this. Do you see that there's a difference in humbling yourself between guys and girls when it comes to coaching? Is there any difference you've seen out there?
Well, I don't know if I would call it humbling. I would call it just the recognition that coaching can help. And to a certain degree, it's an American uniqueness, because America was founded by mavericks, was founded by people who'd been let out of jails, and we were doing our own thing. And what we have nurtured amongst ourselves for the past 250 years is, I can do that. Yeah, I got that. But if you look at extremely successful professionals like Michael Jordan, like Rory McIlroy, like other professionals, they have at least one coach, if not 2 or 3. I remember back in the 90s when the Atlanta Braves had just a really deep pitching bench, and they had 3 or 4 pitchers, and they all did things to psych themselves up. Each one of them had at least one coach. I think John Smoltz had 3 coaches, one of whom was a psychologist to help him with his fear of failure or something like that. Everybody needs a coach. And I think a lot of the lack of recognition of needing a coach is not knowing what part of your life, what aspect of your life you really need coaching in. And that requires introspection. And I think women might be a little bit better at introspection than men.
I think so.
But the whole thing that I think the number one thing is Americans as a whole just resist coaching because we think we can do it ourselves.
Yeah. You know, I have a lady in my Rotary, and so when we were doing the podcast, it came up. She has 3 coaches.
Yeah.
And what she was saying is what she was working on is the flow of all 3 coaches to really serve her future self. So everybody was on the same page. And the idea that you felt, because she's a top performer, I mean, top. I wasn't surprised, but I like what she said about getting all the coaches on the same page and really just kind of getting in sync. How does Sara challenge herself each day?
That is an interesting question. I think the first thing is I've got a routine. I get up early every morning. I'm an early riser.
Mm-hmm.
And my dog and I go out for maybe 3 or 4 miles walking.
Mm-hmm.
And I listen to podcasts. I make plans for the day. I usually write a to-do list the night before.
Mm-hmm.
But then the first thing in the morning is listening to something positive, uplifting, getting exercise in. So when I get back from the 3 or 4 miles with my dog, I
Mm-hmm.
am motivated, the energy's going, I'm ready for the day, and I can execute on the list that I made the night before.
Mm. So you said routine. I'm a routine person too. I have the first 5 things I do of the day, the same thing over and over again. How do you wind down? Like there's so much in that subconscious mind that just plays while we're sleeping. How do you wind down in the evening to set? I like that you put something together before for the next day, but what's your wind down process look like in Sarah's life?
You should look at the nightstand next to my bed. I think there's probably 15 books on it.
Really? Great.
And depending on what I want to go to sleep on, well, it depends on which book I pull out. And I've got, oh gosh, how many books have I got in there? Anyway, I read a real, sure enough, printed book. I don't like looking at screens before I go to bed. I like having books because I can take notes in them. And if I want to go back and look at something very quickly, I've either put a little tab on it or turn the edge down. And it's not like having to get out an iPad and flip back through pages of you don't know where. So I love hard printed books.
Mhm.
And that's what I usually do is I sit, I've got a nice chair next to my bed, get out a book and read uh, to distract my mind. Sometimes it's fiction. Now,
Mhm.
fiction is good because it requires your brain to create uh, a scenery in your head, what people might look like, what are they tools are they using, whatever it is. So fiction's a really good challenge for your brain. So I've got fiction and nonfiction on my nightstand.
Ooh, that's so good. I grew up dyslexic and ADHD, so reading was not my friend
Okay.
until I learned how to do it.
Mm,
I had 49 days to think, and that was the first time I ever slowed down enough to think. But so my routine is I'll put the book in like Chat GPT and I'll say, give me the 10 major points of it.
mm,
Then I plug it into Notebook LM and it'll give me further kind of like a podcast, a video, and then when I've kind of programmed my brain, I'll speed read. And my
ah,
comprehension growing up was like nothing
yeah.
because I'd read a page and go, what the heck did I read? Because my
Mhm.
brain is going in all these different directions. Have you used anything to like AI wise or any tool to help you in your learning?
No, I have not. I've done some book summaries for clients. When I'm sitting beside them and they say, "What should I learn about something?" Then I'll ask the AI tool
Mhm.
to summarize something. And I'm not the swiftest reader either, but I just like the action of sitting down and being calm and opening a book. And there are times when my mind wanders and I have to go back and say, "What the heck did I read?" But I usually have a pencil or a highlighter or something with me, and I'm making notes, which makes it stick. So that for
Mhm.
me, that works for me. So
That's so good. I was not a journaler before my stroke. Like I probably had one journal in 45 years.
yeah, yeah.
And I have almost 20 now. And
Wow.
it's given me clarity. And I read, I don't know if I listened to it, read it, whatever, about how writing rewires your brain.
Yes. Yes.
And so, we type and we can type 10 times faster. But what they were talking about is like when you're taking notes in college, so many people will say, oh, I can type 10 times faster than I can write. But writing really rewires the brain. Do you do any journaling or writing that you could share with us that's helped you in your journey?
Well, I don't keep a journal. I wish I had learned to do that when I was younger, but I do keep notes. I've got my book. Well, it's in my satchel, but I
Hmm.
have a book and a pencil that I write things out in. I'll be someplace and an idea will pop in my head. If it's in a meeting, I'll write it down. If I had an idea pop in my head, I'll ask Siri to take a note. And then once Siri has taken the note, I'll go back and write it down. I'm taking notes constantly, and I like writing with a fountain pen. I just bought myself a gift of a new fountain pen,
Hmm.
and I in my notebook now I will keep fountain pen notes and pencil notes. So I do
Hmm.
both. Yeah.
Ooh, that is so good. Yeah, that's so valuable. Same thing. I sometimes I'll get a pen and it just doesn't flow, and
Mm-hmm.
I throw it away and I
Yeah.
look for something that has that flow, maybe like a fountain pen, that just because when you get into a flow, it's just better. What would you say, like, when you look at the future? Because I hear it all the time. Man, AI is making things faster. We're moving. You know, and I always go back to like Tom Brady, a football analogy. When he was behind, they always said the game slowed down, and he would just do his whatever he had, his routine, and it was slow. But even though the game is fast, it's slow. How are you preparing yourself? Because the pace seems to be getting faster, and I think it is. How does Sarah slow down that you don't get so overwhelmed?
I agree that AI is helping us speed up. I heard a report on the radio yesterday that a lot of companies who had laid people off when they got AI tools are now realizing that they need them back, that the AI tools are just making work more efficient. It's not necessarily getting rid of people. In some cases, it is. But there's one thing that AI will never, ever be able to do, and that is have a relationship, a valuable relationship.
Mm.
So I try to have as many one-to-ones with people face to face and go to meet them somewhere, soak in the atmosphere, have the weather be part of the effect of our meeting.
Mhm.
And I've got three one-to-ones back to back set next week in a coffee house in downtown Marietta. And we'll be sitting out on the patio and I'll have three different people come by. And it's so much more relaxed. And you get so much more from listening to somebody's voice live, looking at their body language.
Mhm.
And that's my approach is human contact is always first, is always most important. I'll use AI when I need help, like when I'm teaching my clients how to identify their ideal client and where to find them, and that just speeds things up, which is great. That you're not driving around Atlanta in this horrible traffic. But to really have a relationship is to sit down, maybe with a cup of coffee, glass of tea, and have a wonderful human conversation.
Yes. I got in, you have to, I always say, you have to play the cards that are dealt you. And driving wasn't my friend after the stroke. So I had to relate, like, what can I do to have those human connections?
Mm.
Because you get energy from people.
Oh, yeah.
So in the afternoons, I get up early too, real early. And so later in the afternoon, I'll go on the porch and have conversations, check in with people, talk to people, have and I get the energy back. Like, because when you've done a lot of stuff, you want to manage that energy, and people are energy. That's why I'm not concerned about AI, because it's always that connection. It's always those relationships. I
Yeah.
want to be respectful of your time, Sarah. So tell our viewers, how can they get more of Sarah Branch?
Yes. Well, my email address is Sara, Sara, no H, at branchconsulting.group. You can go to my website, which is branchconsulting.group. Or if you are old fashioned and like the phone, my number is 470 707 3598. And you can also text me there. So I would love to hear from you. I'd love to have a chat about networking and see what's going on in networking in your world.
Absolutely. That is so good. So if you're not in Atlanta or on the other side of Atlanta and it's hard to get connected to Sara, you'll find her podcast. Let me see if I can point to it. Is just our school community where we want to connect you with the people that you want to meet. And Sara, I can tell that there's so much displacement because every company's trying to figure out how many people do I need and how AI is going to affect it. So there's more displacement today than there has been. And you got to learn how to connect, how to network, how to build those relationships.
Yes.
And a lot of times we just don't exercise that muscle in the corporate environment because we don't have to. We're going to get a paycheck on Friday, whether we do it or not. So we don't sharpen those skills. And those are critical to life, much less your business. You got to be able to do what we've just shared today. So my final question, what would be the one thing you would want our viewers to take home from our time on this podcast?
No matter where you are, no matter what's going on around you, you're always networking. Whether you meet somebody in the elevator, in the line at the grocery store, or you chat up the person at the gas station, you're always networking. And the real value in life, as you said, Pete, is the connections between us human beings. If you have a problem, what are you going to do? It's like, oh, I know Mary probably has the answer to that. You're connected to Mary. You're going to call her. If she doesn't know the answer, she's probably connected to somebody who can. So it's the connections in life that make things rich and wonderful. And that's how we solve our problems.
Wow. I love that. So Sara, thank you so much for taking the time to share with our community things that's going to help them be better. Because when you have a healthy business, you have a healthy life. So those skills you shared with us are so valuable to really have that. So thank you so much. And if you're out here listening, share this with people you may know that need to be in touch with Sara to learn those valuable skills that'll help their business grow and prosper in the future. Because the future is bright, but you got to have skills that'll allow you to have that bright future. So Sara, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Pete.
My pleasure.